This is Joe, the old stargazer. I'd like to welcome you back to Looking Up. This is Act 4, Heroes and Monsters. Once again, if you've not watched the first 3 episodes of this series, I urge you to go back and watch them first, then come back to this one. I also recommend you watch these in full screen. Autumn is one of my favorite times of the year, especially for stargazing. The nights are cooler, generally more clear than the summer nights, and as usual, there's a lot of new stuff to see in the sky. Let's start out looking north to our old friend Cassiopeia, the vain queen. Do you remember how to find her? Yep, it's that lopsided M high in the northern sky. I promised you a story about her, and autumn is the best time to tell it. There are 4 other constellations in the autumn sky that are all part of this ancient Greek myth. Let's point them out. Like the summer triangle, there's another geometric pattern of stars in the autumn sky. It's these 4 stars here that form a slightly lopsided square. It's called the Great Square of Pegasus, the flying horse. Now, I know you've all seen pictures of flying horses with great huge wings. Well, if you can see one here with these 4 stars and a few other dimmer stars around it, you've got a better imagination than I do. Coming off the top star of Pegasus is 2 curving rows of stars that mark the constellation of Andromeda. Again, this one doesn't look like much to me. Maybe you could say it was a stylized letter A for Andromeda. Down below Andromeda is a dim group of stars making up a rather large constellation. This is Cetus, the sea monster. A little imagination goes a long way here, and I can just make out the tail, the body, the neck, and the head of the sea monster. Finally, if we look just below Cassiopeia and to the left of Andromeda, we find the constellation of Perseus. Stretch that imagination of yours just a bit, and you can almost make out the stick figure of a man here. These 5 constellations are all related in the same story from Greek legend. Remember, Cassiopeia was a queen in ancient Ethiopia. She bragged that she was more beautiful than any of the goddesses on Mount Olympus. To punish her, the gods sent Cetus, the sea monster, to terrorize her city. In some versions of the story, the gods made Cassiopeia chain her beautiful daughter Andromeda to a post on the shore as an offering to the sea monster. In other versions, Cassiopeia herself came up with the idea, hoping that the offering of her daughter would cause the sea monster to leave her city in peace. Along comes Perseus, the great hero. Upon seeing Andromeda in chains as bait for the monster, he decides to save her. He knows that Cetus can't be killed by ordinary mortal weapons, though, so he has to find another way to get rid of the monster. In his travels, he had heard of another monster, one called Medusa, an evil creature with snakes for hair. It was said that if you looked upon her face, you would be instantly turned to stone. Perseus had an idea. He polished the inside of his shield until it was mirror bright, and using it as a mirror, he entered Medusa's cave. Looking at her only through the mirror, he was able to sneak up behind her, chop off her head with his sword, and place it safely in a bag he had brought just for that purpose. A drop of Medusa's blood fell on the stone, and a flash of magical light, Pegasus, the flying horse, suddenly appeared. Perseus hopped on Pegasus' back and flew off to save Andromeda. Carefully turning his head, he reached into the bag and pulled out the head of Medusa and held it up where Cetus could see it. Cetus instantly turned to stone and crumbled into the sea. Perseus then flung the head far out to sea where it sank beneath the waves. He then saved the beautiful Andromeda and married her as his reward. So there we have it, up in the autumn sky for you to see. Cassiopeia, the vain queen, her daughter Andromeda, Perseus, the hero, Pegasus, the flying horse, and poor old Cetus, the sea monster, whose only crime was doing what sea monsters do. By the way, the bright star Algol in the constellation Perseus is supposed to represent the glowing eye of Medusa. Here's a question for you to ponder. What is the furthest object you can see with your unaided eye? You might be tempted to say something like, a few miles away. Well, we can all see the moon, and it's almost 240,000 miles away. What about the sun? It's over 94 million miles away. What if I told you that you could see something that's so far away that you almost can't write out all the zeros needed to express it in miles? Wouldn't that be something? Go back to the constellation of Andromeda. Follow the top row of stars out to the second star. Turn right and go to the next star just above it. You can make out a fuzzy patch of light. That is the Andromeda Galaxy, and it is over 15 quintillion miles from your eye. Here's that number written out. Wow. And you can see it with your very own eyes. What is a galaxy? Well, it's kind of a big city in space containing hundreds of billions of stars. Our sun is a star, just like any of the other stars you see in the night sky. And our sun is a member of a galaxy we call the Milky Way. Here's a good picture of Andromeda. Our own Milky Way looks very similar to this, but of course we can't see it because we're inside of it. Remember the Milky Way, that river of stars from the opening images of this program? That's the best we can see from inside. Let's take a look at a few more constellations in the autumn sky. One of the largest constellations in respect to the area it takes up in the sky is Eridanus. From my viewing location, I don't get to see all of it. It sits below and to the east of Cetus. The largest portion of it is to the east, but it meanders its way down across the sky and finally dives down below my southern horizon. Eridanus represents a river. Almost every culture had a different name for this river, usually naming it after a local river such as the Nile, the Euphrates, the Jordan, or the Po. It is also called the King of Rivers. This river is usually associated with Phaethon, son of Helios. Helios was the Greek god who drove the chariot across the sky that contained the sun. Phaethon begged his father to let him drive one day. Unfortunately, Phaethon wasn't a very good driver, and he had trouble controlling the horses, and the chariot dove down towards the earth. To prevent the earth from burning up, Zeus knocked Phaethon out of the chariot with a lightning bolt. He fell down towards earth and into the river Po. His body was recovered by his sisters and buried beside the river. As they mourned their lost brother, Zeus turned them into trees so that they could always be by his side. To the west of Cetus is the constellation Aquarius, the water-bearer. The pattern here is of a man pouring water from a bucket or a jar. The ancient Egyptians thought that Aquarius caused the annual flooding of the Nile River, since as his constellation was setting, they thought he dipped his jar into the river to refill it for the next flood cycle. Between the square of Pegasus and Cetus the sea monster, there lies a dim constellation. It starts up near Pegasus as a loop of stars, then a thin line down towards Cetus. Here another thin line of stars heads west, ending in another loop. This is Pisces, the fishes. Like most of the constellations, there is a myth associated with it. It is said to represent the goddess Venus and her son Cupid, who were walking along the banks of the Euphrates River one day when they were attacked by a monster named Typhon. To escape the monster, they both jumped into the river and transformed themselves into fish. Many other cultures saw this star pattern as representing fishes as well. Well, that concludes our rather short study of the constellations of autumn. Go out on a cool autumn night and see if you can find the great square of Pegasus. And if your night is clear and your eyesight is up to it, look for the Andromeda Galaxy. If you have a pair of binoculars, it can be an easy target to find. Next time, we'll be looking for a dog and a unicorn in the winter sky. Until then, keep looking up.